I'm Matt O'Neill. I drew a bull-only tag this year for the Southern Shore and the East Coast of Newfoundland, just about an hour or so outside of St. John's. My last successful moose hunting season was the 2017 season. I actually went into early 2018, this is before they shortened the season, before I actually got my animal, and it was on the last day of the season. Very long, very hard season. I did get a license again 2 years ago, and again hunting, very long, very hard season. It just turned out to be an unsuccessful year. I've seen lots of animals, they were just always where I wasn't, and it was always 10 minutes of light left, just couldn't make it happen. After all that time, almost 5 years since I got my last animal, I was very eager to make this one a more successful one. On our first day up this season, we hiked in about an hour before first legal shooting light, so it was about an hour and a half before sunrise. Had the headlamps on, all geared up, super excited.
No matter how many times I've done this before, I always forget what the feeling is like until I come back and I'm doing it again.
It didn't take very long the first day up before we started seeing animals. It was probably only a few minutes into first light, and we spotted what we thought at the time was a bull from a long ways away. Shortly after that, we spotted a cow and a calf grazing within probably 500-600 meters. And shortly after that, then we see another bull in a completely different distance. So it was very promising, the fact that we were seeing, animals pretty much popping out of everywhere. So it was an exciting first day. We couldn't close in on any and make it happen, and the rut hadn't started yet, so we weren't able to avail of being able to call them in, but it was a good opening day, to say the least. After 4 or 5 hours of sitting and glassing and spotting lots of animals, the sighting started to taper off a bit, so we decided to make our way back down to the vehicles, regroup, formulate a new plan, get some lunch, and discuss what we were going to do.
I can't have coffee without breakfast. I can't have breakfast without coffee. I've only had 2 breakfasts so far, so
You're good for number 3 here.
so there's due time for third breakfast. Yeah.
The weather, the first couple of weeks of the season, the weather really wasn't ideal. Forecast was calling for some pretty gusty winds and showers for the rest of the evening, and the next few days after, actually. But so it wasn't exactly ideal conditions, but at the same time, you're not going to see any animals from inside the house. So we still decided to come up and give it a shot and see. Regardless of what it's like, they still got to move around and they still got to eat. So you never know.
It only takes a few seconds to catch something breaking the tree line, and you're on it then. Weather don't matter then.
The following morning was quite an exciting morning. We hiked back into a bit more of an inaccessible area, down deeper into a valley.
So, we got in where we wanted to come, and we weren't in for 30 seconds. Looked up on the hill across the valley, where we spotted 2 moose. Now I ranged them 1,100 yards, and it was still a bit duckish, so we couldn't identify whether it was a bull or a cow. Anyways, we got out the spotter. Sure enough, 2 young cows. 2 young bulls. So we're keeping an eye, and then in the tree line just above them, after letting out a couple of calls, we see a third one starting to make his way down the hill, but they're just grazing. They're making their way across the hill. We're hoping they're going to come down 1,100 yards, way too far for a shot. And the way the landscape is here, it's almost impossible to get over to them without bumping them out of it.
After we spotted the third bull, we looked down and spotted a really nice bull and a cow. down at the bottom of the valley on the opposite side of a river, pretty much eye level with where we were to.
We're here watching those two bulls come across the way, and we look down towards the water where there's a little gully between us and that little hill where those two bulls are, and that's what we can't get across. But Matt happens to look down there, and sure enough, out walks a bull, and it looks like a good sized bull, and he's there with a cow coming across. So Matt's making a move now. I told him to go. I don't want to make any extra noise. So he's going running, and hoping now he'll be able to intercept him and get a shot.
But it was 600 yards away, a little bit out of reach for a shot. So I decided to get up and make a play for it. But I mean, even a slow moving moose is much faster than what a man can move, especially across a bog with a backpack on. So by the time I got within range and a shooting lane, they were long gone. But that was still a very exciting and promising day, because again, that's 4 bulls and a cow all within the first 20 or 30 minutes of sitting down.
Man, oh man, oh man. This here was, I mean, this is what you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for, and 2 hours sleep. Packed clothes that was already soaking wet from 3 hours before, and come on up and do it all over again. Loves it.
The next 4 or 5 days that we hunted after that were pretty much the complete opposite. Very disheartening.
We can see for miles in either direction, and we're not seeing anything moving at all. So
we didn't see any animals, see lots of sign, just no animals. We covered, I don't know how many kilometers we hiked, too many. But that gave us a lot of time to, chat, figure out what our next move was. Had quite a few naps. Got a chance to scroll around on all the social media sites and enjoy everybody else's posts for all the animals that they were harvesting, and we weren't, but that's part of it. So we're out shopping a few nights later, out in a thrift store, and my fiancée Stephanie brought me over a little stuffed 6-point bull moose. And I don't think she anticipated me getting as excited about it as I did, and I really don't think she thought I was going to actually buy it. But as soon as I seen it, I said, I gotta have it. So I had planned on taking that with me. I said, this is going to be my new good luck charm. This is my new little buddy. So I strapped it to my backpack and made sure to take it with me next time I come in. So the next day we came in hunting. We're over 40 days now since my last animal. We hike into a new area that we had been to previous seasons, but we hadn't been to yet this season. We hiked in again well before legal shooting light, headlamps on, in the dark, and we get up on a little rock just to take a break. And when I turned around, just about to continue on in the direction we were heading, I decided to turn around for some reason. And again, this is before legal shooting light, pitch black, and I could see just this barely pick out a very large, very dark mass just slowly moving across one of the bogs. It seemed, considering the size of it, to be about 300 yards away, and it was that dark we couldn't even see antlers. But when we put the binoculars up, they managed to catch enough light that we were able to see that it was in fact a very large bull with a very large rack. So we were only about 5 minutes from legal light, repositioned based on the direction that he was heading. But next thing that we sighted him, he was 500 yards in the opposite direction, gone up over a ridge, and we just seen his rack going, and this was just coming on legal light. And again, the length strides that these animals make, there was no way we were catching them. Now we did try. We headed in the same direction, a few hundred yards away, trying to cut him off, but after an hour, a couple of hours looking, no luck. He was gone. So the next weekend we decided we were going to come on up, take the canoes, paddle back to get to a section in behind the pond that we knew tended to hold some big animals. It's just too long of a hike.
It's the first day that we've been out that is not costing at least 40 or 50. I think the easiest day we've had was a sustained 30-kilometer wind.
But when we got up here, the fog was as thick as it could have ever been. So it just wasn't safe to try and navigate a pond when the water was low, rocks everywhere in dark and fog. So we decided to repack our bags and make our way up over the hill in the same vicinity where we had spotted that large bull the previous weekend. Once we got in that area, we decided to head up onto a different knob from where we had originally spotted the bull. This area will give us a much better vantage point for the surrounding area. And we were probably up there, I'd say 30-40 minutes, made a few cow calls. And again, we were just about to start moving, just to head on over to another knob. And I turned around and just with the naked eye spotted a dark spot that hadn't been there a few minutes before. So I put up the binos and looked. Sure enough, it was an animal. Steadied the binos, because he was a good ways off, steadied the binos and determined that it was a bull. So out came the rangefinder and he was 1,600 yards away, just under 1,600 yards away. So just as Phil was about to make a call, we noticed the bull had tucked into the woods, so we held off and waited to see where he'd come out, direction he had gone into the woods. We knew it was only a short distance to the next little clearing. Sure enough, a few minutes later, out he came, probably 50, 60 yards closer, but still well over 1,500 yards away. So it was at that time that Phil decided to start cow calling, and it was a perfect morning for it, even at that distance, because there was barely a breath of wind. Phil was about halfway through the first call. I'm looking through the binos, and the bull's head just stands straight up, looking right in our direction. We knew then we had him. My heart just started pounding. Here we go. So by the time the end of the first call is when he started moving. He'd moved down 100 yards or so, stop, look up again. We'd let out another call. As soon as the call had stopped, he'd start coming on again, just like he was on a string. He couldn't have worked out any better. So I decided to make my way down off the top of the hill onto a real nice big rock that was there. I knew I could get a nice, comfortable lay down, prone shot. Had my bag laid out, had my rifle resting. Anthony came down the hill with me, so that way if the bull had changed direction, Anthony would have been able to call him in a little bit closer. Plus it was nice then Anthony could maintain a range on him for me. So Phil ended up calling him in from almost 1,600 yards to ultimately, by the time I pulled the trigger, 309 yards. That was the last number that Anthony told me on the rangefinder. He was standing broadside, he wasn't moving, slightly quartered away, the exact shot that I love taking. Well rested, heart rate under control, breathing under control, nice squeeze of the trigger, and it went exactly where I wanted it to go. I knew I had made a good shot. I knew the bullet went exactly where I wanted it to go. A lot of years of shooting, a lot of bullets, a lot of practice. I was confident, I was 100% sure. So we waited, he started to walk away, and he went over and just walked behind a really big rock and laid down. Again, I knew it was a good shot. Phil was still up on top of the hill at this point. He texted Anthony to say that he seen him lay down behind the rock, but his head was still up. So Anthony and I got up, we started to make our way down, the rest of the way down the hill, walked across the bog. So we got within 200 yards, we could see that his head was still up, he was lying down. So just to be sure, I took the extra follow-up shot, and that was it. It was done. 43 days since my last successful hunt. I don't know how many kilometers hiked, how many pounds packed on my back, how many kilometers paddled, how many kilometers driven, how much gas burned. I don't regret any of it. It was all well worth the lead up. It was a beautiful animal, 6-point bull. I'll have the rack mounted. I'll always have the memories. It was a fantastic season. I'm glad it went the way it went. I got a freezer full of meat. Couldn't have asked for better. We got it done. Nice animal, lots of good clean meat, and God knows enough memories. So here we are, day 347. I'm starved to death. I haven't eaten in about 3 weeks. Can't see straight. We're all going away to nothing here, starting to hallucinate. Fucking Care Bears running around.